An entitled Karen claimed I stole my own car because her mother owns the same model. She then stole my car keys, police gets called, and she tries to get me falsely arrested. Here is what happened. Subscribe to Ripe on YouTube and hit the bell to turn on notifications. This happened 2 years ago when I was 17. I had my license but was only allowed to drive in supervision of an adult. I had just gotten my very first car, a light brown Trabant 601 from 1963, which I actually still drive and love very much. Particularly, this happened shortly after I took my boyfriend out for a nice dinner date. We had just finished paying and went outside to drive home when I noticed a lady standing next to my car looking inside ominously through the passenger window. The cast is EM, you guessed it, S, my awesome boyfriend Sebastian, RG random guy, PO police officer, and me. S speed walking towards her. Hey, what are you doing? EM, oh, I was just looking at this car. Me, okay, could you please not? EM completely ignoring me. My mother drives that exact same model, even in the same color. Me, cool, could you back off now? EM, don't you raise your voice at me, boy. S, lady, it is his car, so would you please leave? EM not even missing a beat. You stole this car from my mother. S, calm down, it's his bloody car. Me, I will show you the damn keys if you don't believe him. Yeah, right, you don't even have them. Me, fishing the car keys out of my pocket, which had a lot of decorations on them. See, it is my car. EM, but you're like 15, you cannot even drive. You are way too young to drive that model. S, she has a license, you moron, and even if he was underage, he would still be allowed to drive with me in the passenger seat. EM then proceeds to snatch the keys out of my hands and tucks them into her giant purse. Me, hey, give me back my keys. EM, assault, these guys are trying to steal my car. Now, I was just baffled and did not know what to say at all. S did not dare to try and get the keys back because he knew that if he did, he would actually be charged with assault or something along those lines. An older man that was about to enter the restaurant heard the woman screaming and came towards us and asked what happened. EM, they tried to steal my car and even hurt me. Me, no we didn't, that's my car. This cow just stole my keys and is now acting like we're the offenders. RG, okay, I will just call the police and let them deal with it. About 10 minutes after his call, an officer arrived at the scene. First, he asked EM what had happened and she told her BS story of how she was about to get in the car when S and I came up to her, pushed her out of the way and tried to steal it. Then he asked me what happened and I told him the truth. PO, EM, would you please show me your license, the keys and the vehicle documents? I don't know what they are called in English, basically the documents that show it is her car. EM suddenly got very pale and reluctantly gave the officer the keys and her license. EM, the keys are mine. The little figure belongs to my son. He loves Superman. The officer raised one of his eyebrows suspiciously and asked for the vehicle documents again. She obviously couldn't find them and said that she unfortunately had not had them right now. The officer then asked me to retrieve the documents, which I did, and they showed that I was in fact the owner of this car. PO, ma'am, you're arrested for false accusations, attempted theft and discrimination. EM, you cannot do this. I did not say anything bad. PO, to my knowledge, you called these young men a homophobic slur, accused them of something they didn't do, and tried to get them falsely arrested, which is, by law, discrimination. EM just got silent and followed the officer to the police car. I got all my necessary items back and S and I drove home. As parents had a good laugh about our story when we told them about it over the phone. And yeah guys, this is how quickly it can go. One moment you're trying to steal the car of someone else and the next moment you are obviously getting arrested for being a bad person. If you enjoy my content, please don't forget to like the video because that would help me tremendously. Thank you so much in advance. The next one is titled Smart Revenge. I worked for a company that provides specialized equipment used in manufacturing. To protect my anonymity, I will have to be vague about what exactly this machine does. During my time working in this field, I got to know many clients who would need these machines installed and serviced. One of these customers we will call Jake. I later left the company to go for a different job, but Jake apparently kept my number. One afternoon I got a call from Jake that they wanted a new unit installed and another unit needed maintenance and wanted to know if I was available. I let him know that I left the company but that I could pass him on to someone who could help. He tells me he will pay 2 times my current rate to install the unit over the weekend. He lets me know that the company has increased the rates for installation and the company just cannot afford it. The instructions they sent over just are not clear enough and their engineers are scratching their heads trying to figure it out. He begs me to consider it and I agree. For more context, installing this unit can take a good few hours or up to a day on our own. The company gives you 2 options. You can either pay for an engineer to come and install it, or you can save money and they will send instructions so the customer's own engineers can install it. The instructions are not easy to follow and it is company policy that if someone has started to install the equipment, the supplier would not get involved since they could not verify that any of the pieces were broken. This will be important later. I drive down on the weekend and they show me the boxes of equipment. I set to work and I make good progress installing the unit. Around 6 hours in and I am stopped by Jake who greets me. I let him know that I'm nearly finished and he tells me, "Sorry, but they just don't have the budget to pay you." He understands my frustration, but his engineers can take it from here. To say I was frustrated was an understatement. I wanted revenge. There is a small button inside the unit that changes the unit into test mode. This is done to perform maintenance on the unit, but it is impossible to configure the unit with this button pressed. It is only possible to reach this button using a pin, so it is not easily pressed during installation. Because of this, the installation instructions don't mention it. There's no real way of telling the equipment is in test mode, it just won't work normally. And I think you can guess where this is going. I click the button, collect my things and leave. Monday morning, I get a call from Jake. I declined. I knew my old company would not get involved since I already started installing the unit and I knew his engineers would never figure it out. I just had to let him stew. A few days later, with many missed calls, I finally pick up. Jake is furious. He asks me where the hell I have been and why I have not been picking up the phone. He tells me they cannot figure it out how to configure the machine and they need my help. I tell him, "Why is this my problem? You won't pay me." He told me he was sorry and they would work something out if I could get there as soon as possible. I told him, "Oh no, you're going to pay me £7,000 up front before I do anything." I had never felt this powerful before. He screamed at me for a bit and hung up. He called back a day later after saying he is sorry for how he acted and said that if I could come fix it, he would pay me in a totally defeated tone. He tried to fight it, saying he will pay when I was done, but I was having none of it. After a bit of back and forth, he agrees to pay me, the money hit my account and I came in the next day. The look of confusion over his face when I took out a pin and changed the unit from test mode was priceless. It was even more priceless seeing his reaction to me packing up my tools and leaving after only 20 minutes of configuring. The easiest £7,000 I had ever made. Don't try to mess with a professional problem solver. The next one is titled, "Don't Tell Me to Work Less." When I was 18, I started working in an ice cream parlor/lunchroom. I worked there every season, the summer and springs. My second season there, I got promoted to shift supervisor, which means more responsibilities but the same pay. Every time they needed someone to pick up a shift or start earlier, that person would be me. So, cut to my third season, I was starting to take less crap from everyone and generally standing up for myself more. I got a complaint filed against me from a customer because I refused to serve her once we were closed one evening. Instead of talking to me about it, I knew the owner personally and up until that time, I considered her a nice person and she liked me. I started to notice that I got less and less hours. When I asked the general manager about it, she swore up and down that it had nothing to do with the complaint and their business just had been slow. This all kept happening until I got noticed that they had overscheduled a shift and that I didn't have to work that day. When I dropped by, imagine my surprise that there was someone working who was not scheduled because it was busy. I asked the owner to have a conversation with me, and these are some of the highlights. Number 1, we don't owe you any answers. Number 2, you do know there are cameras, right? Someone stole 40 euros a week before. Number 3, did something happen at home because you are acting different this year? After this conversation, I quit right there. Cue petty revenge. I happened to know that their AC was ridiculously dirty. I knew this because my now fiancé worked with ACs at the time and had warned both me and the owner about it. Think about mold, dust, etc. in there. They had not done anything about it, and when given the opportunity to get a new system at a very discounted price, they just laughed and said it was too expensive. Guess who anonymously tipped their health department, and guess who had to close for a week while their AC got replaced and got a pretty hefty fine. Edit number 2, since it apparently is not obvious from my post, I warned them the second season I worked there, warned them multiple times before I quit, and my fiancé also warned them multiple times and offered to fix it for them at a ridiculously low price. I only reported them after I quit. The next one is titled, Yes, I Bought Gifts. Here is my little revenge against my brother and sister-in-law. I have no children by choice, however, I adore my nephew, 9 female and 6 male. I like to give them things for their birthdays and Christmas, like books or games that I think they might like. Well, last year in November I got a call from my brother. He told me that he thinks I should try harder with gifts for his kids because I don't have kids of my own and I have a good job. And also that he expects him to give them lots of things for Christmas, implying that I would not be able to see them again if I didn't. I don't like this at all, and I think what I do with my money is my own business. Personally, I think my brother and sister-in-law are jealous because I travel a lot on vacation, but that's no excuse to be picky. After giving it some thought, I decided to make sure he would never ask me for something like that again. I went to the store and told one of the clerks that I wanted the most annoying toys they had. I bought the following: a drum set, 2 trumpets, a children's keyboard, 2 guitars, 2 xylophones, a few sound toys, makeup stuff for little girls, a bracelet making set, glitter, and those are the ones I remember, although there were a few more that dirty a lot. The naive parents were very happy when I told them that I needed help carrying the gifts. They clearly thought I was obeying them and planning to give amazing gifts to my nephews. But that changed when the children began to open the presents. Of course, my nephews were very happy with everything they received and really wanted to start playing. But the best was the face of my brother and sister-in-law. The horror growing with each gift that was opened, it was wonderful. I left a few hours later with a sore head from the noise, but amused because my nephews didn't seem to have any intention of stopping anytime soon. I was reminded of this recently as my niece is going to be 10 in a few weeks and my brother has been strongly hinting to me that I don't have to spend a lot on gifts and that something simple is more than enough. As far as I know, between my visits and those of other relatives, several toys have been lost or no longer work. I think I'll be nice and just buy my niece a couple of books for her birthday. Edit with minor update, well, I didn't expect so many comments. And yes, my other 2 languages used the masculine plural to refer to a group, so when you read nephews, I mean my nephew and niece. I have talked to my brother and he admits that his wife encouraged him to demand more gifts from me, and I have told him clearly that he would not accept that again. And if he threatens me again, I will never see my niece and nephew again. I will not hesitate to explain the situation to the rest of the family. I know for a fact that my parents would take my side because they don't like my sister-in-law. My niece will receive for her birthday next week a book by C.S. Lewis. I'm sure many of you guess which one, since she has seen the movie recently and loved it. I will also give her an ordinary toy without unbearable noises. The next one is titled, Never Think You Are Superior. Disclaimer, this takes place in Germany. I, female 32, had a very strange group of friends in high school. The "if you have friends like this, you don't need enemies" kind. One of these girls was Julia, fake name. She treated me horribly, but in the same breath would call me her best friend without letting me really have a say in the matter. She would rip me to shreds behind my back, make up rumors about me, etc. It was a very confusing time, and so our clique stuck together through years of secretly creating drama and disliking each other. In hindsight, all dumb 14-year-old high school girly stuff, but at the time it truly hurt me a lot. Julia had to repeat a grade and changed schools, and I cut the friendship off right there. She still had friends at my school though, and so the rumors continued for years. Even up to my mid-20s, I would hear from people, "Oh, weren't you the girl who slept with XYZ?" Even though I was the most boring, introverted high schooler ever. I learned to shrug it off, but knowing so many people had an awful misconception of me because of Julia was disheartening and anxiety-inducing. There was a good chance people my age had heard of me even if they had never met me. This weekend I was back in my hometown and attended an event with some friends, none of which I went to high school with. We were standing at a table drinking wine and enjoying the sun when one of my friends pointed out that a neighboring table kept looking at me. I looked and it was Julia and a bunch of other women quickly turning their heads away. They had been looking me up and down and clearly gossiping. Now, I am not currently in my best phase. I have gained some weight, I was dressed cute but sloppily and was disheveled and sweaty. I felt self-conscious and obviously this was not how I wanted to meet a person, but I had so much bad history with. But I am not that boring introverted high schooler anymore. Nowadays I am outspoken, opinionated and a little bit mischievous when the occasion arises. So I decided it was time to stretch my acting muscles and be petty for once. I went over all question marks and polite smiles being like, "Hey, I saw you looking, can I help you with anything?" I did not say that sarcastically, I was genuinely just being polite. The woman looked surprised and then one of them pointed at Julia and said, "Oh no, Julia here just said you used to go to the same school." I looked Julia right in her face and said super excitedly, "Oh really? The Montessori school?" Which was my grade school. Julia looked really put off, her face was super scrunched up and she replied confused, "No, our high school's name." Listen, I'm not an actress, but I know I pulled this off perfectly. I made a surprised and then pensive face and said, "Oh, and your name is?" I could tell Julia was getting irritated. She said her name and I thought for a second and then apologized and said, "Oh my goodness, this is so embarrassing. I really cannot place you. How long were we in class together?" "Until 8th grade. She looked so uncomfortable while saying that. She was looking at my face like she clearly wanted to say more, but could not tell if I really did not remember her. It was glorious. I was acting my butt off, sort of smiling apologetically and saying, "Boy, I'm so sorry, that was nearly 17 years ago. But please don't take it personally. I really only remember the names of the people I was friends with back then." The other women were all sort of chuckling uncomfortably and one of her friends even said, "Oh yeah, that happens to me all the time too. I can never place former classmates." We were just laughing a little and then Julia just threw in a really meek, "We were friends." I wanted to laugh at her at that point, but I kept it in and just sort of shrugged and said, "I'm so sorry, I really don't recall. But hey, it was nice seeing you again. I hope you ladies have a nice rest of the evening." The look on her face when I turned away was priceless. I will dream about it for years. I could tell her other friends did not really think much about the whole interaction, but Julia was clearly embarrassed. So I made sure to wink at her when she passed me to leave the event. And Ripe Stars, I'm curious, have you ever had these friends that could also pass off as enemies? Let us know in the comments about your experiences, and now we have reached the end of the video and I would very much appreciate it if you could hit the bell button to turn on notifications and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much.